Living faithfully, under pressure. Steadiness, integrity, and trust in demanding seasons. Introduction. Pressure changes the way we carry life. It can narrow the mind, tighten the body, and make everything feel urgent. It can make a faithful person wonder if something is wrong, if the strain means they've missed God. This book is for demanding seasons. Seasons where responsibility is real, outcomes are unclear, and strength feels quieter than you expected. It is not crisis language. It is not survival advice. It is a slow companion for remaining faithful without hardening, collapsing, or rushing your way into compromise. Chapter 1. Pressure is not failure. Pressure has a way of making a good person doubt themselves. You can be doing what is right and still feel strained. You can be faithful and still feel tired. You can be carrying responsibility with integrity and still wonder quietly if the weight means you've missed something. But pressure is not automatically a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it is simply the shape of the season. There are seasons where life is lighter, where margins exist, where the soul has room to breathe. And there are seasons where demands increase, where decisions matter more, where time feels tighter, where the day asks for more than it used to. In those seasons, pressure can feel like spiritual failure, but it is often just reality. A faithful life is not a life without strain. It is a life that learns how to remain under strain. If you treat pressure as failure, you will become frantic. You will rush to escape. You will look for quick fixes. You may even begin to compromise, not because you want to, but because you feel desperate to get relief. One of the first acts of steadiness is simply naming the truth. This is pressure, not condemnation, not abandonment, not proof that you are doing everything wrong. Pressure. Jesus speaks with tenderness to those who feel the weight of life. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. He doesn't say, come to me when you've handled it well. He speaks to the burdened. Pressure is often where you learn what your faith is actually resting on. When life is easy, many things can hold you. Your routines, your energy, your clarity, your sense of control. But when pressure rises, those supports weaken, and what remains is often simpler, trust or the lack of it. This isn't meant to shame you, it's meant to clarify you. God is not shocked by your strain. He is not disappointed that you feel the weight. He is present in it. And learning to live faithfully under pressure begins with refusing to interpret strain as spiritual collapse. Some days will feel tight, some seasons will feel demanding. The presence of pressure does not mean the presence of failure. It may simply mean you are living a real life. And God can meet you there, not with hype, not with urgency, but with steady strength. Chapter 2. The difference between weight and burden. Not everything heavy is yours to carry. This is one of the quietest truths a pressured season will teach you, if you let it. Because pressure tends to blur the line between what is required and what is assumed, between responsibility and over-responsibility, between what is yours and what you have absorbed. Weight is part of life. Burden is often added. Weight is what belongs to your calling, your role, your season, what you are genuinely meant to carry with God. Burden is what enters when fear takes over, when you try to control outcomes, when you take responsibility for what belongs to other people. A person under pressure often carries both without knowing the difference. They carry their tasks and they carry the imagined consequences. They carry their work and they carry everyone's reaction to it. They carry their family, and they carry the fear of failing them. They carry decisions, and they carry the need to be certain. That extra caring is a burden. Jesus uses language that is surprisingly practical here. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Matthew 11:30. Again, this doesn't mean life becomes effortless. It means there is a way to carry life that is not crushing. A yoke implies shared weight. It implies a pace. It implies guidance. When pressure rises, one of the most faithful choices you can make is to ask, what is the true weight of this season, and what have I added? Sometimes what you've added is guilt. Sometimes it's the need to impress. Sometimes it's the belief that you must hold everything together. Sometimes it's constant mental rehearsal, as if thinking can prevent pain. God does not ask you to carry the whole future. He does not ask you to carry the outcome. He asks you to carry what is in front of you with faithfulness. The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Weight can be carried with steadiness. Burden usually produces franticness. Weight can coexist with peace. Burden usually steals it. This chapter is not asking you to drop responsibility. It is asking you to drop what was never assigned. You can be faithful without being crushed, and often that faithfulness begins with a quiet release. This part is not mine. Chapter 3. Steadiness when outcomes are unclear. One of the hardest parts of pressure is uncertainty. Not knowing how something will turn out, not knowing if the effort will matter, not knowing if the season will lift soon, or if it will stretch longer than you hoped. Unclear outcomes can make the soul restless. It can tempt you to chase certainty, to force resolution, to push decisions faster than wisdom allows. It can make you interpret waiting as wasted time. It can make you assume that if you can't see the result, you must not be doing enough. But faithfulness has never depended on immediate visibility. Some of the most faithful lives in Scripture are marked by long seasons of not knowing. Not because God was cruel, but because formation often happens in the space between promise and outcome. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. Notice the word season. Season implies time. It implies patience. It implies that the work may be hidden for a while. Steadiness under unclear outcomes is not pretending everything is fine. It is choosing not to be ruled by the need to know. It is doing what is faithful today, without demanding that today show you the full picture. This is difficult because pressure trains the mind to scan. It scans for evidence, for progress, for reassurance, for signs that you are not wasting your life. But scanning can become its own kind of bondage. You start living from constant evaluation instead of quiet obedience. You start measuring everything, and the measuring exhausts you. Steadiness is a different posture. It says, I will remain faithful in what I can see, and I will trust God with what I cannot. This is not passivity. It is maturity. It's the ability to keep showing up without franticness, to keep loving without proof, to keep doing the good thing without needing immediate reward. If outcomes are unclear for you right now, you are not necessarily off course. You may simply be in the middle of the season, and the middle is where steadiness is formed. Chapter 4. Integrity. Under demand. Pressure doesn't only test your strength, it tests your character, not in a dramatic way, but in small daily moments. How you speak when you're tired, how you treat people when you're stretched, what you allow yourself to justify when you feel pressed. Under demand, it becomes tempting to cut corners, not always outwardly, but inwardly, to become sharper, less patient, less truthful with yourself, less honest in prayer, more defensive, more reactive. Integrity is not perfection. Integrity is wholeness. It is the inner alignment where your outward life and your inward life belong together, where you don't become two different people depending on the pressure. The integrity of the upright guides them. Proverbs 11:3. Integrity guides. It keeps you from being driven by whatever is loudest. It keeps you from making decisions that relieve pressure in the short term but cost you peace in the long term. Demand often tempts you to become less human, to speak without kindness because you're stressed, to excuse impatience because it's a hard season, to hide small compromises because you're tired. But the hard season is not an exception to faithfulness. It is one of the places faithfulness becomes real. This does not mean you must be endlessly calm. You will feel strain. You may need to apologize more in pressured seasons. You may need to slow down, breathe, and return often. Integrity under demand looks like quick repair. When you snap, you return. When you drift, you return. When you feel tempted to justify, you pause. Integrity is maintained not by never failing, but by not living divided. A pressured season can actually become a sacred training ground. Not because pressure is good, but because it reveals where you are tempted to trade faithfulness for relief. Integrity says, I will not become someone I don't recognize just to survive this. And God, patiently, supplies what you cannot manufacture. Chapter 5. Trusting God's timing in heavy seasons. Heavy seasons have a particular ache: delay. You do what is faithful, and the situation remains. You pray, and the outcome is still unclear. You keep going, and the relief does not arrive on your schedule. Delay can feel personal. It can feel punitive. It can make you wonder if God is withholding. But God's timing is not cruelty. Often, it is protection. Sometimes what you want quickly would harm you if it came quickly. Sometimes you are being strengthened for what you will eventually carry. Sometimes a door is held closed because it would open into something you are not meant to enter yet. Wait for the Lord. Be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Psalm 27:14. Waiting here is not framed as a passive void. It is framed as a place where courage is formed. Heavy seasons often make people rush. They rush decisions. They rush relationships. They rush out of commitments. They rush into compromises that promise immediate relief. But what feels like relief can be a detour. Trusting God's timing is not pretending delay is easy. It is choosing not to let delay make you desperate. Desperation can make any shortcut look reasonable, but God often does His deepest work in the slow places, in the unglamorous weeks, in the waiting where you are still showing up, still being faithful, still refusing to harden. If you are in delay right now, it does not mean God is absent. It may mean He is doing something you cannot measure. And a faithful soul learns to live with that, without collapsing, without rushing, without interpreting slowness as abandonment. Chapter 6. Resisting the pressure to compromise. Pressure makes shortcuts look sensible. When you're tired, when the demand is high, when the outcome is unclear, compromise can start to sound like wisdom. Not the obvious kind, but the subtle kind. Just bend a little. Just avoid the hard conversation. Just say what they want to hear. Just do it the easy way this once. Compromise is often presented as relief, but it rarely leaves the soul at peace. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Matthew 5:37. This is not about harshness. It is about clarity. Pressure blurs clarity. It tempts you to become ambiguous with yourself, to justify things you wouldn't normally justify, to slowly shift your inner standard because you feel you can't afford integrity right now. But integrity is not something you can afford only when life is easy. Compromise under pressure often begins as self-protection. You don't want conflict. You don't want loss. You don't want to disappoint. You don't want to be misunderstood. These are real fears, and God is gentle with them, but fear is not meant to lead you. Resisting compromise does not always mean dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it means quiet faithfulness, doing the honest thing when no one sees, choosing patience instead of sharpness, holding a boundary even when you feel guilty, telling the truth kindly, not returning harm with harm. These choices rarely feel heroic, but they build a life that can stand. Pressure will keep coming in different forms throughout life. The question is not whether you will face it. The question is what kind of person you are becoming under it. God can form you into someone who does not trade long-term peace for short-term relief. And that formation happens in exactly these moments. Chapter 7. Strength that is quiet and enduring. Some strength is loud. It announces itself. It proves itself. It tries to be seen. But the strength God forms in pressured seasons is often quieter. It is the strength of endurance, the strength of steadiness, the strength of a soul that keeps showing up without spectacle. Quiet strength does not look like constant energy. It looks like faithfulness. It looks like continuing to love, continuing to pray, continuing to do what is right, continuing to return when you drift, continuing to remain soft when pressure tempts you to harden. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. This is not a romantic verse. It's a realistic one. Weakness is part of being human. Pressure exposes it, and God does not meet weakness with contempt. He meets it with grace. Grace does not always remove the weight. Often it changes how you carry it. It gives you enough strength for today. Not always for the whole season at once. Often just for the next faithful step. Quiet strength also includes knowing when to rest. Endurance is not the same as pushing. Endurance is sustained faithfulness, and sustained faithfulness requires rhythm. Even Jesus withdrew. Even Jesus slept. Even Jesus stepped away from crowds. If your strength is quiet right now, that does not mean it is weak. It may mean it is real. The world often praises visible strength, confidence, speed, certainty. God often forms invisible strength, patience, integrity, trust. And those are the strengths that hold under pressure. Chapter 8. A life that holds under weight. The goal of this book is not that pressure disappears. The goal is that your life becomes able to hold under pressure, without hardening, without breaking, without losing your soul in the process. A life that holds is not a life without emotion. You will feel strain. You will feel fatigue. You may feel grief. You may feel uncertainty, but you will not be driven by those feelings. You will be guided by faithfulness. Those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. Isaiah 40:31. Renewal does not always come as sudden relief. Sometimes it comes as renewed capacity, a deeper steadiness, a quieter resilience. A life that holds under weight has learned certain things. Pressure is not failure. Not all heaviness is yours. Outcomes can be unclear without your faith being unclear. Integrity matters most when it costs. Delay can be protective. Compromise steals peace. Strength can be quiet. God is near in strain. This is not a list to master. It is a posture to grow into. If you are in a demanding season right now, you do not need to become more intense. You do not need to prove your faith by exhausting yourself. You do not need to rush your way into clarity. You can remain. You can keep doing what is faithful, one day at a time. You can keep returning to God without panic. You can let His steadiness hold your pace. A life that holds is a life that trusts God enough to stay human. Not perfectly, but faithfully. Conclusion. Pressure will come in different forms throughout life. Sometimes it will be brief. Sometimes it will stretch longer than you hoped. But pressure does not have to destroy your peace or your integrity. It can become a place where steadiness is formed. If you remember one thing, let it be this: you are not failing because life feels heavy. You are being invited to remain faithful inside the heaviness, and you are not carrying it alone. If you want a simple beginning, choose one quiet act of faithfulness today. One honest boundary, one gentle return, one refusal to compromise, and let that be enough for now.